Okay, I just want to get down to the bottom of something that's been bothering me for quite some time, and that is, what is racism? And is it possible for black people, or any non-white people for that matter, to be racist? Okay, so at this day and time, you have this massive movement on the part of, I would say, on the part of some racist suspects who have attempted and gotten pretty good, pretty damn far with it for the past, I say, 10 years, have attempted to bombard the the uh, the airwaves, so to speak. That is, all the information and uh, you know everything that is being communicated to the masses of the people, both white and non-white, is being communicated in a way to confuse you about what racism is. And this has been going on, I would say, since started around right after the Katrina situation. Okay, it's been this mass movement to confuse you about what racism is. All right, and they want you to believe that they came up with this term called reverse racism, and they want you to believe that they're victims, the victims of racism, that is, non-white people who have been victims of racism for centuries, historically speaking, at least for the past 500 to 600 years, probably even further. But I'm just telling you what uh, it looks like, what it appears to be to me, starting in the, the 1400s, maybe even the 1300s, somewhere around there is when this uh, this mass movement to conquer the non-white people on the planet began, somewhere around in there. That's what it appears to me to be. Okay, and there was a huge period in history, centuries in history, where racism was open. White people openly spoke about it, and they openly supported it, and it was called white supremacy, talking about a global system of white supremacy that white people openly talked about. And I'm not saying all white people, just those white people who were in power, the ones who had the power to speak and influence the masses. They openly spoke about white supremacy, and they openly did everything that they could to promote it, to maintain it, to promote it and maintain it. And these days, it has been refined into a way that it has now become covert. It's much more deceptive, and it's deceptive because of the words that they are using to confuse the masses of the people. Okay, so then you have these incidences where some non-white people, especially black people, are getting frustrated and bitter from being victimized by racism, white supremacy, so much that they fight back. They react in violent ways or even deceptive ways. And that is a reaction to racism, white supremacy. I'm not saying that what they are doing or what they have done is the correct way to go about doing it. However, we must be clear that what they are doing is a reaction to racism. It is impossible for a non-white person to be a racist. Okay, and you heard me say racist, racism, white supremacy. The codified way to do this is because, or the way to counter the deception behind the racism, it for the just the fact that people are confused today as to what racism is, and that they believe that it's possible for non-white people to be racist, that in of itself is racism, because anyone who believes that has been deceived by the racists. So, in order to define racism and make it stick so that we can be specific and you cannot be confused about what type or what kind of racism is being spoken about, we have to say racism, white supremacy. Okay? That nips it in the bud. So that way, whenever you're talking, whenever you're speaking about this, because it needs to be a conversation, it has to be a real conversation about this if we are going to progress on this planet. If we are going to progress into being all that we can be, which is universal man and universal woman, where there is no more racism, there is no more injustice, then we've got to have conversation, real conversation, where we are talking the truth in a manner that promotes justice and helps the person who needs the most help get the most constructive help that they need. So I got a clip here. Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney is from the baby boomer generation, which is the last generation of victims of racism, the last generation of non-white people who were openly victimized by white supremacy. And they know what they're talking about. You know, so Paul Mooney is not hip to the fact that there's a new generation of racist suspects, that is, white people who are able to practice racism, and we have no way to prove that they are practicing racism, so we call them racist suspects, are attempting to change the definition of what racism is. And in this clip, you'll see he is going off the original definition that white people gave racism. They're the ones who invented the term back when it was open. And, you know, like I said, he's of the last generation of victims of racism who experienced overt racism. And you'll probably have to go to an older dictionary, one that was made in the 50s or 40s, to find the original definition, which originally defined racism as white supremacy. So, watch the clip, and then tell me what you think in the comments to this video. Subscribe and like the video. Also share it. If you agree with what I'm talking about, in that we need to spark a discussion and we need to unconfuse victims of racism, white supremacy from the false definition or the false idea, belief that everybody can be racist.
I can't be racist by definition. Look that up in the white folks dictionary. How can I be racist? I've never told anyone where to live. I've never told anyone what kind of jobs to have. I've never kept anyone from going to a school, out of a restaurant, or drinking from a fountain. I've never lynched anybody. So how can I be racist? How can I be racist? By definition, I can't be racist.
Well, I think what's happening is...
How can the slave be the master? That doesn't even make sense. I mean, that's someone that's telling you this or making that statement, whether they're black or white, they have to be totally insane. I can't be, by definition. Look up the definition of racism.
History, racist, 1932 as a noun, 1983 as an adjective from the race. Racism is first attested in 1936 from France, originating in the context of Nazi theories, but they replaced earlier words racialism, 1907, racialist, 1917, both often used at first in Bristol or South African context. Example of racist, the racism that was the basis of apartheid. Was the racist of what? Apartheid. So what's that got to do with us? They keep calling us racist. Hitler's declaration of his belief in a master race was an indicator that the inherent racism of the Nazi movement. What's the difference from Hitler and what they done to you? If Hitler believed in a superior race, didn't I just read to you earlier when I said to you that Europeans used to see themselves above you? The only way they can tax you is to class you less than a human. Do you know that? How much do you know that?
Well, I think what's happening in the world is a lot of younger people feel like they have no attachment to the past of America. They want to make that clear in their own different ways.
And I mean, I'm just saying that to you. But if I am racist, if I go along with, how can the slave be the master? That doesn't even make sense. I mean, that's someone that's telling you this or making that statement, whether they're black or white, they have to be totally insane. I can't be, by definition. Look up the definition of racism.
Well, I think what's happening in the world is a lot of younger people feel like they have no attachment.
Can't be, by definition. Look up the definition of racism.
Well, I think what's happening in the world is a lot of younger people feel like they have no attachment to the past of America. They want to make that clear in their own different ways.
And I mean, I'm just saying that to you. But if I am racist, if I go along with that, then I learn from the best. I was taught by the best, if that's true. But I don't think that's true. I don't think I can be.
Why do you think?
That's like telling a cow that they're the owner of the cows. The cows don't own people. People own cows. So it doesn't make sense to me. For me, it doesn't compute.
We deal with similar issues just by having the name Real Black. Early on, I did a piece on my grandmother, and they said, you know, this is even more racist. If I made a show called Real White, I'd be called racist. A lot of people...
If you said real white, you'd be called racist. That doesn't make sense. Because things are real white. I'd say you would be in earnest. Just have them read the book.